These are the original treads that we finished the house with to get occupancy, but we knew we wanted to work on it. So the first thing I had to do was remove all the treads. To get power to all the LED lights, these wires were installed by the electricians, and they had the wire for power connected to the light switch. There wasn't a box inside this, so I installed this box, and right now the power is coming from this power supply, but I don't think it's enough to power as many steps that we have. I had soldered all these connections. Here's where my negative, these were my positive, and I spliced them down into these larger wires that go into this adapter, and so you can just unplug it. So I may look for a larger adapter and try to see if that will keep the lights working properly. If not, I have another one of these. I can disconnect one of the lines that will remove approximately 4 to 6 lights depending on which one I get, and then I could plug that one also into the light switch, and then running 2 power supplies, it should alleviate the flickering that I'm getting, and hopefully that will resolve the issue. So each strand is cut at 36 inches, and you have these little gold areas that you can solder the wire onto, and they each have a positive and negative. You want to make sure you match it up, otherwise they will not light. And I had already stripped all the wires for that were installed underneath the stairs, and so each one needs to be soldered on. And I started soldering puddles onto the actual LED light, and then melted it again to seal the wire on, and that went a little bit faster and was easier than the way I'm showing it here. Here's another stair. Looking further back, I cut a little slot for the wire so the treads, as you walk up and down on them, don't wear the wires out. So this just goes through another process of soldering. But I sped it up, so hopefully, you can always use the skip button if you want to go through. Every time I wired, I'd test the light, make sure it turns on before I'd finish up. And after, I'd strip off the tape, and I would tape it to the edge of the tread, but I wouldn't rely on the tape, so I use a staple gun. This doesn't later on sag, because that would just be awful and look horrible. And you can see, I don't do it, I think I did it about every 6 to 8 inches, and you can see there's a little bit of space between these chips, and that's where I tried to put the staple. I didn't want to put it on the chip or over the LED, because it could possibly break the light or the connection. And there's places where they're double chips, so I choose those spaces without that. After each one of these steps, before I nail it down, I ensure that it lights up. So for each tread, after I wire it and get everything secured on there and test the lights, make sure they still work, I put some caulking down to ensure that it doesn't make squeaky sounds when you walk up and down the stairs. I hate that. And I tested it again before I nail it down, and then I move up a step, do the same process again. This is just a simple time lapse, so you can see the amount of stairs and all the amount of steps that you got to work through. Doesn't always capture when I test the lights, but I did test after every one. This is a process I got to work with to get to my tools, but I've made everything on wheels so I can move things around. And this is setting up to cut the actual flooring that's going to go over each of the stair treads. Since all walls aren't totally straight, I just wanted to measure the last remaining stairs and ensure that I cut the flooring to the right width.
Wow.
I then transferred the measurements to each of the planks. We had done our loft with this flooring and we had purchased this cutter, and it goes so fast. This is one of the best cutters for these vinyl planks. I took the cut pieces and laid them onto the treads that they will be adhered to later on. Here I'm taking some measurements for the rise for each of the steps. So when I measured these pieces before I cut it on the table saw, I measured from this side, this is for the riser, and you utilize the piece that you cut off will connect with the piece on the stair tread to make the complete connection and fill out that little bit of space before you put the bullnose on, and that way you utilize more of the material. After cutting the rises, I took the parts that I wanted to use to fill out the treads and ensure that they fit properly and were going in the right direction and everything. And they still needed to get trimmed up to, I think, about a 1/2 inch off the ends so they didn't overhang the step too much. This is the top riser that has to go around a bit of molding, so this is just cutting a bit of that off. So if you're wondering why I'm flipping some of these around, this has a nice clean edge. This one here has a connecting edge. You don't want this to show, so we're cutting this part off. This is cutting the final tread parts, the size it needs to be. These next two time lapses are really just showing putting them down. I was basically caulking the back side of them so they could be stuck down. It's kind of hard to see from this angle, but I did another overhead angle that'll come up shortly. The last part of the treads is putting the cap, I guess you'd call it, that goes over the tip. And sorry, this was at the wrong angle on the phone, but these you have to special order. They didn't have them in the store. And here's the final stairs. These are with the lights off, and here you can see them with the lights on. Thanks for watching. You're awesome. Liked it. Woo!